Hello, I'm Mike Evans, and I want to talk to you about April Fools. On April 1st, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini proclaimed the first day of the government of God in Iran, an Islamic revolution. Few people know that Khomeini's Islamic revolution would have never succeeded without the help of a liberal American president who was hell-bent on overthrowing the Shah of Iran to install a cleric, all in the name of human rights. I wrote a major book on this subject, Jimmy Carter, the Liberal Left and World Chaos, in 2009, after interviewing over 100 leaders who are aware of the plot. I met with the Empress Farah Pahlavi in Georgetown at her home. She read my book and said it's 100% true. She said, on New Year's Eve, the Persian New Year, 1977, when Jimmy Carter visited with her and her husband after Jimmy Carter signed the guest book, he told my husband, "You will release political prisoners, you'll give freedom of press, freedom of religion, and let Khomeini back in the country. He is a cleric. If you don't, I will not give you any more replacement parts for your helicopters or your planes. I can do this now under a new law that suspends foreign aid over human rights." The Shah looked at the Empress and said, "If I do what he asks, the Russians will invade Afghanistan. Iraq will attack Iran. There'll be an Islamic revolution in Iran with Khomeini taking over the country, and who knows what horror will come upon the earth." Everything that the Shah predicted came to pass. I met with the late President of France, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, who told me that Carter called for a summit on the French Republic island of Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, with him and the West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl and the British Prime Minister James Callaghan. D'Estaing told me that it was there that Carter shared his plan to overthrow the Shah and put Khomeini in power. He said Carter believed that because Khomeini was a cleric, he would be a Gandhi-like figure. He told Carter in French, "You're a bastard of conscience. You have betrayed an ally." Isra Harel, the founder of Israeli intelligence Mossad, told me on the 23rd of September, 1980, at his home, with then senior advisor to Prime Minister Menachem Begin, Reuben Hecht, when Ronald Reagan puts his hand on the Bible, the hostages will be released. He also said, "The first terrorist attack will be New York City and your tallest building, because America is developing a tolerance for terror." When Ronald Reagan put his hand on the Bible during his inauguration, my phone rang. It was Reuben Hecht, Begin's senior advisor, saying, "Harel's a prophet. It's happening exactly as he told us." What I found out later is Carter had been using Cyrus Vance, the former Secretary of State, to negotiate through the Algerians to buy back the hostages. The Iranians were holding back because they wanted to use the hostages to keep Carter from being reelected. On the morning of the inauguration, 4:21 a.m., Jimmy Carter wire transferred $7.9 billion from the Federal Reserve to the Bank of England to buy back the hostages. The Biden administration is doing precisely the same thing as Carter foolishly did 44 years ago, putting enormous pressure on the State of Israel, America's ally, to agree to a ceasefire and not launch a military operation against the terrorists in Rafah. The problem is twofold. If Israel agrees to the Biden administration demands, first, the war on terror against the Iranian proxy Hamas will be lost. Secondly, the hostages, 130 of them, will die. They're there. A high-level credible source in Jerusalem told me during my recent visit to Israel that the majority of the Israeli hostages are in Rafah. Instead of supporting Israel's efforts to defeat terror and rescuing the 130 hostages, the U.S. abstained in a UN security vote on March 25th, calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza that was unanimously passed without a precondition of the release of the hostages held by Hamas. President Biden is more focused on winning his election with the support of Israel-hating progressives and Muslims than Israel winning the 9/11 war on terror. When U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on March 22nd, the Israeli leader told him that he appreciated the Biden administration's support for months. But there's no way to defeat Hamas without entering Rafah and eliminating the battalions and getting the hostages back. And I told him, he said, that I hope we will do it with the U.S. support. But if we have to, we will go it alone. Imagine the pain of Israelis who watch their loved ones being raped, burnt alive, and beheaded, and seeing protesters screaming in the streets of America and on university campuses shouting, "From the river to the sea." Imagine that. The United States is foolishly turning its back on Israel. President Biden, you'd better read Genesis 12:3. God's promise to Abraham, "I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee." Because throughout history, it's proven time and time again, it will come to pass. The last thing that America needs is to lose God's blessing. I'm asking you to urgently sign the petition of support to the state of Israel that I'll present to President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and also give a generous offering to help us with this national U.S. campaign. Hours after the United States policy of friendship with Israel collapsed on the floor of the UN Security Council, Baltimore's famous Francis Scott Key Bridge, named for the man who penned the U.S. national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, was hit by a ship and collapsed into the river. Irony? I don't think so.